The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the January 9th, 2024, 1:30 p.m. meeting of the North Carolina Local Government Commission. If you'll stand and join us for our salute to our flag, and Secretary Marshall will lead us in our pledge to the North Carolina flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of North Carolina and pledge to the Old North State love, loyalty, and faith.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome State Auditor Holmes, Jessica Holmes, here with us today. She has been on a whirlwind tour since her appointment, which, as you can imagine, as the state auditor, involves a lot of different amounts of paperwork. I wanted to extend the courtesies of having her here for our meeting today. I don't think she's fully certified, not because of something she hasn't done, probably some other state agency is waiting to finish their work. But we'd like to welcome you to the Local Government Commission, and thank you for sitting up here with us. So, with that, we have some housekeeping items. Cindy, if you'll call the roll of our members as well as.
So, this is Cindy Aiken, Assistant General Counsel. Alderman Holmes is present but not participating. Secretary Marshall. Here. And Secretary Kennedy.
Here.
Who is on virtual today, Mr. Burns.
Here is very wet.
Very wet, sorry. And Mr. Butler.
Here.
And Ms. Harvey. Welcome back. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Here.
There she is, virtual, Mr. Philbeck.
Here.
Also virtual, Treasurer Falwell, person. Any, Ms. Harvey connected or? Don't know. Okay. All right, moving along. This LGC staff present, Interim Director of State and Local Government Finance, Debbie Tomasco, Jennifer Wimmer, Director of Debt Management, Kendra Boyle, Director of Fiscal Management, and Tony Blaylock is in the room from Debt. We have just the same housekeeping items as before. Our announcement to the public is that these meeting proceedings are being recorded and will be made available to the public pursuant to the Department of State Treasurer's recording and public meetings policy. If everyone will please remember to identify yourself when you are speaking. If you are with us by virtual means, please mute yourself when you are not speaking. If we have any power or audiovisual connection issues, the meeting will continue if possible. Audio and video may be continued to be broadcast, so just be mindful of that if you're virtual. The agenda for today is posted on the website at the LGC page at www.nctreasurer.com. If we have any changes to the agenda, the chair will announce that during the meeting. We will take votes by roll call. Without objection, your motion and seconds will be considered as a yes, unless you indicate otherwise during the vote. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to recognize Chief of Staff Ted Brand, along with a lot of other people keep the trains running. So Ted, thank you for joining us. No baseball today, Ted, outside. We have an agenda that's before us. In addition to that, I've asked Cindy Aiken to go over some issues regarding questions about conflicts of interest. She produced a flow chart that I think has been sent to everyone. But before doing so, our conflicts of interest statement, please take a moment to review the agenda. Does anyone have an actual potential or the appearance of conflict of interest regarding any matters that are before us? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to dedicate our proceedings today in honor of Sergeant Dale Nix of the Greensboro Police Department, Councilwoman Hoffman is very familiar with the circumstances regarding the loss of one of Greensboro PD's finest on New Year's Eve. We will see you Thursday, Councilwoman Hoffman, and we're very sorry for your loss.
Thank you very much. It's just so tragic. He was a 23-year veteran of the Greensboro Police Department. His father had been an officer, and his brother is with our fire department. So a family of public servants. He was a wonderful individual, and it's a huge loss.
Thank you. To tell you how broad and deep the Nix family tree is in public service, he was murdered on New Year's Eve. The service is the day after tomorrow, because there's so many members of this family who have official duties as first responders, firefighters, and police officers. Getting all that aligned, that's just how broad and deep the public services family is. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of December 5th.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Second, Secretary Marshall, any further discussion? Hearing none. If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay, for December minutes, that was Hoffman, Marshall, Secretary Penny,
Aye.
Mr. Burns,
I was not in attendance, so have no, oh, can I abstain on that one, or should I just say aye?
okay, but as my memo points out.
I'll say aye.
Yes. You don't have to. Okay, aye. Mr. Butler,
Aye.
did Ms. Harvey join? Not yet, okay. Councilwoman, oh, whoops, Mr. Philbeck
Aye.
and Treasurer Falwell.
All right.
Motion carries.
Cindy, would you take a moment and go over the
Oh, okay.
document
Sorry.
that Mr. Butler has referenced regarding conflict, so that there's, as we move forward, there's no ambiguity about what all that means.
Okay, sure. The Q&A started out with the very first question, am I required to vote? And we'll move on from there. So just, I'm happy to entertain questions, but basically, the state board is not a mandatory requirement to vote on anything. We encourage you to do so. However, the statutes that require recusal are not the easiest ones to follow. So I hope that the flow chart was helpful. The main points were that there are two types of questions to look at in the conflicts of interest round. The first one was the financial benefit questions. The second chart was the relationship questions. And I included the definitions of the key terms because it's kind of complicated. By trying to pull all those statutes together and pull out in an organized way, just go through and ask yourself the question. You can always check ahead of time. You do get the agenda a week before, so it's not a ton of time, but you can check with me, our compliance officer. We're having a personnel change. We'll inform you of that later. You can check directly with the State Ethics Commission. They would welcome you to do so. So when you look at the exceptions, if you really have a conundrum and you need written guidance that protects you from any challenge down the road to the decision, you can check with the chair, who along with legal can make determinations. But just remember the difference that Mr. Burns raised right now. You can abstain just because you want to or you don't have enough information. You must recuse if you have a defined conflict of interest after walking through the questions and the flow chart. The chair has a duty to remind the board continuously, periodically, of your duty to just self-examine. And So really, the statute kind of places job one, or you are job one for yourself. You have a duty to self-monitor and just keep track of your personal board memberships, nonprofit work, financial relationships. Keep yourself apprised, and don't forget to do the training when it's due. Don't forget your SEIs, Statement of Economic Interest. And we're here to help and remind you and guide. That's the highlights.
Cindy, I'd like to ask you to read item number 5.
Okay,
Now, let's be sure everybody's clear on that.
sure. Question is posed, may the members inquire about a fellow board member's possible conflict of interest? Before I read what I wrote, that's silent. The statute is silent except for the chairman of the board. There is no prohibition on a member asking a fellow member if he or she has a conflict of interest that would require recusal. It's certainly in the spirit of the Ethics Act for members to help each other be alert to conflicts of interest. I footnoted there the entire language of the second part of the Ethics Act, which gives you the purpose of the chapter and the spirit in which it is intended to be used. As noted above, the chair has a statutory obligation to assist members in their compliance with the Ethics Act. So, I would suggest
all
that
clear on that?
if anyone has a good faith inquiry of another member, we're not prohibited from raising that point at the appropriate time. So, that help?
But it's ultimately up to the individual.
Yeah, well, and depending on the financial benefit or the relationship section even gives, is it part D, I think, of that statute. I'm getting it memorized now. 138A-38 says if you are unsure about the whole relationship part of it, that consult with the chairman of your board in consultation with legal to try to figure it out.
But basically,
on the fly as we
but basically, Cindy, the bottom line is there is no prohibition on a member asking another board member if they have a conflict.
I didn't find one, no, sir.
Okay, I just want to be sure
Better than-
we were clear on that.
I mean, the spirit of the Ethics Act is that we want public servants to be able to exercise your duties fairly, free from favoritism, undue influence, and propriety. So, sometimes the statutes are difficult to read, but the intent was to have clearly established standards of ethical conduct and standards on definitions, so that you can identify a potential or actual conflict early, get it resolved, and do your job to the best of your ability.
Are you going to wade through the conflicts of interest? He asked you questions.
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Are you going to walk through the conflicts of interest, or would you like us to ask you questions about it?
Whatever the chair thinks is the best use of our time.
Whatever's most efficient. How would you like to do it?
So,
Well, I have read this extensively and had other people read it. And let me tell you what I came away with.
okay.
I came away, unless there is money, something of value, an automobile, a free beach trip, something of clear value that is coming back to the board member, there is really not a conflict of interest. John, have you read all this?
I haven't read the memo as closely as you have, but I do think that there can be financial coming back to someone related to you that would also.
Well, oh yeah, and your family members, your family members. But at the end of the day, the people I've had read it, there's got to be money or something of value. When you wade through all the conflicts of interest, it isn't that you're doing a favor, it isn't this, it's what did what did the board member get from it? Or what did a member of their family get from it? And it has to be something of tangible value.
Let's look at the definition of financial benefit. Page 7.
So my point is, you don't have a conflict of interest if a sewer line's being put in on the other side of White Lake, North Carolina, and we come in here and I'm 10 miles from where the sewer line is. I don't have a conflict of interest. You know, we've had it brought up here, you know, I own property here, I own this, but that is no direct money benefit to you as a board member. Wait in, John, I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, I think the memo, chart A is if you have financial interest, and then chart B is whether the relationship would give rise to reason to question your judgment.
Yeah.
Either you have a reason to question your own judgment, you should certainly recuse yourself, but it happens. And then might my impartiality be reasonably questioned? If yes, the question is whether it's reasonably questioned or not. And I think that's where the line drawing begins. But I'm not sure it's accurate to say only if money comes back to the voting party, because there's that reasonable questioning of impartiality issue involved. But in your instance, for me, from my perspective, if you live on one side of White Lake and there's something going on the other side, you are no different from anybody on that side of White Lake.
And there's been numerous occasions in here where we've had board members say, well, I own property in this town, so therefore I should excuse myself from voting because I have a conflict of interest.
Well, and actually, this is Cindy again. Actually, when that's come up, my standard answer is if you fall under the class exception, where, like Mr. Burns just said, my interest is no different than taxpayer A, B, and C down the street. And I have always said, you do not have to recuse yourself, but if you choose to, just to avoid that's the difference there. I've always, I think, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I've always said that's not required recusal, but you make your choice. And Secretary Marshall.
Let me throw in a couple things here. Number one, what is a conflict of interest is sometimes very hard to define. The appearance of a conflict of interest is a whole nother matter that I don't know that this gives us a whole lot of guidance as to what an appearance is. That's kind of in the eyes of the public in general.
And I've mentioned it once to the treasurer, and I didn't change it on today's script, but actually the word appearance doesn't necessarily come into play. And the ethics commission is looking, when they're reviewing your information, they're looking for potential conflicts of interest. So for example, in the case of Councilwoman Hoffman, for example, anytime Greensboro is coming with an application, that's more than potential. But the potential is, if it comes up, the alert, let me pull up, on the financial benefit, there's just so many pieces. I tried to break out the question in order. Is the financial benefit remote or tenuous or insignificant or so speculative that a reasonable person would say, oh, come on, that's not going to impair your judgment. But that's -31, statute number 36 says, if you know, or somebody would reasonably infer that a financial benefit is going to influence your vote. Okay. So those are the words we're working with. Reasonably foreseeable benefit, and then could your independence of judgment reasonably be inferred to be affected? Mr. Burns, did you have another question?
You got that.
And go ahead.
There is one clear thing that the parties that decide what is a thing of value have determined is not based upon one of my cases, where there was an affair between various people, a lobbyist and a member, and they decided that having the benefits of an affair, whatever that might not be, is not a thing of value.
Gary.
Oh, but does that come under the, does that come under the?
We're sorry.
It's history in the state, so.
I'm going, there's chart B, relationship questions. I think, I'm going to say one last thing, and I forgot what it was, but go ahead.
I did have a question or a difference. Auditor Holmes and I, having served on a county commission, had a clear duty to vote. And so the appearance or the inference of a conflict of interest doesn't matter in that circumstance if there isn't an actual conflict of interest. We had to vote. What I understand from your memo is we can still make the decision here that even if there is no pecuniary interest that wouldn't fit the definition of conflict of interest under the statute that governed us, we may still say, public may see this as a conflict and I'm just not going to vote on this. We can do that.
Yes,
Or seek approval.
and some of you have done that in the
Okay.
past.
Thank you.
Let me add that sometimes when you own property, just out of spirit of transparency, you want to announce that ownership, even though recognizing that you're right. The standard answer is unless you have a particular benefit inuring to you, you have no conflict. But you may still want to be transparent to avoid the appearance that you are covering up something.
Thank you, Secretary Penny, because I think that was the other thought that was in the back of my mind that I forgot. Thank you. And
Mr. Butler, thank you for raising this question. Cindy, thank you for
welcome.
all the homework that you've done in providing this answer. I want to tell Auditor Holmes that in my 7 years of chairing this commission, the word affair has never gotten into the record until now.
There now.
Treasurer, may I remember the last thing to say, don't forget also that the financial benefit can also be a pecuniary loss to a business competitor of yours. So there's that. But this board doesn't. Yeah. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the great work of Laura Rowe as has been our compliance officer for all these years. And she and I worked together on part of this memo. And then on our communications team, April Parker helped me with the graphics because I'm not very good at moving arrows and boxes around. So she helped me. We worked on that to get it in good flow. So I hope it's a good tool. And you have lots of resources at your disposal, including the Ethics Commission whose work, this is all they do. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you. We continue to get questions, obviously, about our Boone meeting and Project Grace and records and text messages. So just, I think the more that we can irrigate these issues and get them out in the open as far as us working together as a board, the better off we're going to be. So with that, I'd like to call your attention to Attachment A. This is our OPEB report. Auditor Holmes, this is put in large font for Mr. Butler's purposes. This is something that I've been asking for years. It just basically talks about the unfunded health care, pension, and LEO liabilities of some of these communities. Our shining example on this report, not here today, but in the past, has been the city of Winston-Salem, who has an $87 million healthcare liability, but they have $33 million sitting in the bank because they foresaw this problem 39 years ago, and they started putting money aside for that. Second biggest example is the city of Charlotte, who has about $140 million in their OPEB liability toward their $600 million liability, if my memory's right. I guess the latest example possibly is Wake County, who maybe finally in that last budget started putting $25 or $30 million toward their $500 million liability for the first time in their history. So this report is an effort just to highlight to these local communities that It's just not the balance sheet that you see. It's these unfunded liabilities. That's called the OPEB report. I'll now turn the meeting over to Jennifer and Kendra, who will talk about UAL list and town of Liberty.
Good afternoon. There is one unit on the unit assistance list that is coming to us for approval. Is the town of Liberty, and they are coming to us for a lease to purchase agreement for public safety radios. This is for them to remain in compliance with the NC Viper radio system. The amount is $214,142. And I will turn it over to Kendra to speak about their financial performance indicators of concern.
Yes, so the town of Liberty is on the unit assistance list. Primarily, they are on there because of having late audits. And in the last year, they have been able to turn in their 21 audit, their 22, their 23 field work is scheduled to begin next week. So we hope to have something by, they said February, I would say probably March. We would have something that'll be caught up on the 23. Their financial performance indicators of concern mainly have to do with their water and sewer fund, which they, in this fiscal budget year, they've increased their rates. So we may not see any indication of recovery in that in their 23 audit report that we get soon, we hope. But it will probably be reflected in 2024's audit report. This debt they've asked to issue is related to general fund, and the general fund does not have any issues. It will be paid for out of general fund revenues, and it is something that they need to do in order to be compatible with the systems in a statewide radio system. So we have we're recommending that they be allowed to issue this debt even without their audit report and being on the unit assistance list.
We have Scott Kidd and Janie Phelps joining us. Can you hear us, Mr. Manager and Assistant Manager? Scott or Janie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. You may have heard the presentation. The staff's making a recommendation to approve this. Don't talk yourself out of a deal, but is there anything you'd like to add?
I don't have anything to add. If I was muted by the organizer, so Scott might be in the same situation. I came in a little later at the game, but he may have something to add.
I finally got myself unmuted. My apologies. No, I'm just proud of our team for finding new auditors. That has helped us to, as was mentioned, get at least 2 audits done in 1 year and potentially a third to get us caught up. And if we complete an audit by February, that is the earliest Liberty has completed an audit in the last 6 to 7 years. So I'm proud of what our team and our audit team has done.
Okay. All right. You've heard the, thank you all for joining us. You've heard the recommendation from staff. Would anybody care to make a motion to approve this?
Move approval, Burns.
I'll second that.
Second.
Motion second being made. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
And this is for the town of Liberty, Burns and Butler. Secretary Marshall. Aye. Secretary Kenny.
I was cut off. I didn't hear anything, so I'm going to have to abstain.
Okay. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Yes.
Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
And Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Okay.
Scott and Janie, before you hang up, for all the members who are listening in who enjoy country music, there's a place in Liberty called the Liberty Showcase. It's an old movie theater. They just had Chubby Checker down there. I think he's 82 years old. He played for 2 hours and 14 minutes without stopping. Aaron Tippin's coming, and I just trying to help drive sales tax revenue. Aaron Tippin is coming to the Liberty Showcase. John Berry, who I know pretty well, Junior Brown. Anyway, just if you ever want a reason to enjoy some great country music, Watson, Conway, and Loretta's grandchildren. Anyway, just a great time if you just want to get out of town and go see some good country music. Liberty, North Carolina, that's a great place to go. I'm sure Scott and Janie would echo that, right? They got their money and ran. And the Oak Ridge boys. So they're all coming in the next 2 months. So anyway, with that, we'll go to the next recommendation, the town of Waynesville. I apologize.
This is Jennifer, and on your consent agenda, we have the items for Beach Mountain all the way through, let's see, Kings Mountain with the miscellaneous action items. If you have any questions, we are recommending approval for all of these.
Okay. Does anybody wish to have any of these pulled off the consent agenda?
Which one's treasurer?
Speak up, say it one more time.
Talking about appendix C.
C, Beach Mountain through Kings Mountain.
There's just a couple of things I'd like to point out, maybe this. On Beach Mountain, the debt ratio is per capita, before this was $6,000. It's now going to go up to $28,000. But that's just the people that are voting, if I understand it correctly. And the debt ratio for the assessed valuation, which would be all the people that live there that do not vote, is going from 44% to 1.95%. So we're looking at a substantial increase these folks are going to have in their taxes. And we've got that on 2 or 3 of them, Beach Mountain, Holly Springs, and Wendell.
All of those that you speak of are general obligation bond referendums that have passed. To speak about the ratios, Tony Blaylock, who's our Assistant Director of Debt.
Yeah, I read that, and most of them passed by 60-some%. But they're stacking the debt on now. I mean, they've come to the party in a big way.
With respect to Beach Mountain, you are correct that the full-time residents are the per capita. However, you have lots of non-resident property owners. So the full-time residents are a very small percentage of all the units that will be served by the water system improvement.
Right.
The plan is for the debt service and this obligation to be paid half from water and sewer revenues and half from increased taxes. So that all of those will be spread across all the property owners, not just the full-time residents.
And I think it speaks here in North Carolina. I mean, on Bald Head, you had 60-some% of the people to approve the bond referendum. And there were only 300 people that voted. But the debt ratio that will go across those 1,300 rooftops over there will be significant, something like this, if Bald Head ever finds its way back to the local government commission. But it just jumped out at me at these 3 that they believe in their projects and are prepared to tax themselves to do it.
That's correct.
And somebody did a great job at local leadership selling the bonds.
Thank you. Any further discussion about attachment D, which is our consent agenda? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
C.
C. Did I say D? Apologize. Attachment C. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Motion second being made. Any further discussion about the consent agenda? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Right. So once again, These items are Beach Mountain through the miscellaneous action Kings Mountain, Marshall Burns, Secretary Kenny,
Aye.
Mr. Butler. Aye. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck
Aye.
and Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, now we'll turn it over to Jennifer, discuss some of our miscellaneous non-action items for the Wake County Housing Authority, and then we'll be moving very quickly into our presentation by the Charlotte-Mecklenburg School System.
The miscellaneous non-action item, which is just for informational purposes, is for the Wake County Housing Authority, and this is changing the terms of the previously approved developer project for affordable housing. And then the borrower can receive improved financing terms by putting the loan into a privately placed loan with Churchill Mortgage Investments. So the project has not changed. The not to exceed also has not, and the maturity has not changed. We're just updating the loan.
Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. Now we're to attachment D, and I'll turn the meeting over to.
Yes, I just have an update. It's very brief on the 4 out of the 5 units that we have under our fiscal control. The 5th, Spencer Mountain, has no update as the charter suspended. There's no financial activity. I'll just bring to your attention on the town of Eureka to let you know that the replacement sewer flow meter has arrived. It would be installed, except because of all this rain, it has not been able to be installed. But that is all in place. So that's the only item that I was going to bring to your attention in this. The rest is pretty self-explanatory.
Have we found the pump for Eureka that's measuring the water distance?
Yes, sir. We've got it's arrived, but it's not been
Satisfied with
installed.
Mr. State Treasurer, are you satisfied with the pump in Eureka?
11 months left in my term. I'll be shocked if it's installed before I get out of here.
I may accompany you because I'd like to see this pump too.
I haven't seen a picture.
All right.
Didn't realize you were already counting down on that stuff.
He's short like in Vietnam. He can't get any long. I can't get any long conversations. I'm short.
All right. Any other questions about that? Next. Okay. We now want to welcome the folks from Mecklenburg County. I can now see are all joining us virtually. We're happy to be joined by Dana Dorio, the county manager, Crystal Hill, the superintendent of public schools, newly appointed, I guess, superintendent of public schools. Congratulations. David Boyd, the chief financial officer, and then they're accompanied by subject matter experts Michael Bryant, deputy county manager Brian Schultz, the Mecklenburg School System chief operating officer Dennis Lacaria, the executive director of facilities and real estate, David Cheatwood, financial advisor, Rebecca Joyner, the bond counsel. And with that, can you hear us okay?
We can't hear them.
Well, could you say something so we could check your voice? Yeah, you're muted.
Yeah.
They're unmuted on our end.
Can you hear me? Crystal Hill?
Yes.
Thank you.
I can hear you, Crystal.
Can you hear me, David Boyd?
Yes. Dana, I'm not sure we can hear you.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I've changed my microphones. Thank you. I'm going to kick us off for the presentation, and then I will certainly hand it off to others. So again, my name is Dee Mario, and I am the county manager for Mecklenburg County. First, I would like to thank all of you and extend the thanks of the Mecklenburg Board of County Commissioners for the opportunity to present to the Local Government Commission today. We welcome the opportunity to share some information and to answer your questions. I served as Mecklenburg County Manager for over 10 years, and prior to that, I served as the county's Chief Financial Officer for 7 years. I am really proud of the county's strong financial position. The county holds a AAA bond rating from Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch rating agencies. The rating agencies routinely cite the county's strong, sound financial position, strong liquidity position, strong governance bolstered by formal policies and procedures, and manageable long-term liabilities as credit strengths. I want to assure you that I would never take any unnecessary risks that would negatively impact the county's financial future and subsequently the residents of my county. The presentation we have prepared for you today is designed to anticipate and answer the many questions that you may have. Once we have concluded the presentation, we would be happy to answer any additional questions not covered in the presentation. Next slide, please. Treasurer Falwell took the liberty of introducing my team. As you can see here, we are joined by a stellar all-star team of professionals who will be able to answer questions as we move along. Next slide, please. So here's the agenda topics that we're going to cover in today's presentation. Dr. Hill is going to review the district's profile, provide an overview of the district's capital needs, and present the planned projects. After that, Mr. Boyd will present the county's overall capital plan, including school projects and plan of finance. Next slide, please. So to summarize what we're presenting today, a countywide bond referendum was held on November 7th, 2023, the same day as the general election. The ballot question asked voters to approve $2.5 billion in general obligation bonds for school purposes. The referendum passed with 63.11% voting in favor. And with that, I will now turn the podium over to Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Ms. D'Ario. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here today. On behalf of the Board of Education, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to share some information with you. As you can see, our bond successfully passed with 188 out of 195 precincts voting yes. Next slide. During my time with you today, I will cover a very brief profile of Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, an overview of our capital needs in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, which led us to collaborate with our county partners to make a bond to our voters. I'll share briefly planned projects, and also the status of our 2017 bond projects, as well as the projects proposed in our 2023 CIP bond. Next slide, please. As you can see here, we have 47% of our schools that are at or over capacity. We have a little over 1,200 portables in use that have a capacity of approximately 26,000 students. Next slide. Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools is the second largest school district in the state of North Carolina. And as you can see, we are 2 times larger than the third largest district in North Carolina, which would be Guilford County Schools. Next slide. As expected, enrollment did drop during the pandemic, but as you can see, we have been flat since 2020, 2021, and our enrollment has increased since the beginning of the school year. Mecklenburg County is a growing community, and if traditional public school participation does happen to decrease, it is highly likely that our actual numbers will likely remain flat or slightly increase due to the population increase in our county. Next slide. I'd like to briefly share with you our approach to our plan. Our focus, of course, was on improving the learning environment for our students and also improving the teaching environment for our staff. We are planning to increase the capacity of our schools, as many of our older schools have smaller capacities, such as Allenbrook Elementary School. Our new elementary schools will have a 45 classroom capacity. Next slide. The 2017 bond projects are 90% complete, as you can see here on our dashboard. Our bond projects have taken place over the last 6 years, and it does demonstrate our capability to complete numerous projects in a short amount of time. And of course, our 2017 bond projects were completed during a global pandemic. The 2017 bond projects will be 100% complete by the end of this calendar year. We are very proud of our transparency and the public trust that's been developed by our follow-through on our commitments, as well as our transparency through resources such as the CMS Bond Construction website, which you see linked here. The evidence in the trust of our community is the percent approval of general bond obligation referendums for current and past cycles. Next slide, please. Our facility needs are great. Our capital needs assessment identified 125 projects needed in the next 10 years. We went through a process of over 18 months of planning, development, and community engagement, which led us to our capital improvement plan, which our board approved that we sent on to our county commissioners. I would like to remind this group that our initial ask to our county commissioners was $2.9 billion, but we worked very closely with our partners to agree upon a $2.5 billion amount. Our rubric included educational environment components for the first time in this CIP development. We have utilized a rubric since the 2007 bond, and this time we really focused on the educational environment priorities to make sure that our students have access and equity to conducive learning environments in our existing facilities. Next slide. Again, we have 30 projects that will be impacting 35 school sites, and 6 of our projects are in design phase only. Next slide, please. Here you will see a list of all of our projects, and we have sorted them for your view today. So you can see our projects are either categorized in terms of new construction and growth, off-site and on-site replacements, as well as renovation. And on the next slide, you will see a summary of the information that I've just shared. At this time, I will turn it over to Mr. David Boyd.
Before we move on, we're kind of an interactive group. Tell me your first name again.
Crystal.
Okay, Crystal. Hey, Crystal. This is Treasurer Falwell. Other people may have questions. Is your enrollment going up or going down?
Down.
Our enrollment is flat. So we are a few students lower than we were last year, but we have increased since the start of the school year.
What is a few down?
What is a few?
If you go back to the previous slide, you'll be able to see that. It was less than 200 students.
I'm kind of old, so I don't see as well as you do.
Yeah, just
right here. Yep, right here. So I can read the numbers off to you.
That's okay. I think now that it sits there a minute, we can all focus on it.
Okay.
Second question, a little more inelegant. Sometimes it's reported in Mecklenburg County that there are people who are trying to break up the system, get a divorce from the system, all kinds of things. How does everything that you've already said take that into account? Are those still hot topics or not hot topics?
Thank you for that question. No, that is not a hot topic. In fact, we had all of our municipalities fully support our bond and passed in those precincts as well. Several of those municipalities will be impacted by this current bond project.
Third question I've looked at those precincts that did not support the bond referendum. What can you tell this board who don't live in Charlotte what you thought the situation was with those precincts that did not support the bond referendum?
Sure. So some of the precincts that did not support it this time supported it previously. You know, some of them that did not support it this time didn't particularly have a project that would be impacted in their area. So it's, you know, perfectly understandable that, you know, some citizens may be more concerned with the projects that are in their area. But overall, you can see an overwhelming 63% and 188 out of 195 precincts saying yes.
And when I was visiting Charlotte last week on official business, there were still some remnants of signage about voting no to the bonds. How would you characterize the relationship with the people who are working against this passage now that the voters have approved it? How would you characterize your addressing those needs? And sometimes you just can't address people's needs, their satisfaction. How would you characterize that?
Sure. So the group that launched the Vote No campaign, I've met with prior to our bond referendum, right at the start, and actually have a planned meeting to meet with them following. On the evening of the bond passage, I did receive a congratulatory note. So, in Mecklenburg County, we may have disagreed on this particular topic, but at the end of the day, we all want what's best for our students, and that's for them to achieve at high levels. So we're working very closely together to make that happen.
3 more questions, if the board will give me a little latitude. On the 2017 bond referendum, 25 out of 29 projects done, all done by the end of this year. Under budget, within schedule, or a mix?
We are on budget, I believe, but I would ask for some of my team members to answer that question as well. And
Okay.
David is on as well.
I guess what I'm getting at, we see this all across state government, is that promises are made, but promises aren't kept. All of a sudden, things happen, and somebody who is on all this fancy material, never gets their needs met. So that's why I was asking you if any of that occurred on the 17 projects or not.
Yeah, that's not my understanding. Again, I'll let the subject matter experts answer that question. I will speak to our planned referendum that we've worked very closely with our county partners who have run all the escalations. This team is very conservative, as am I. So I feel very confident that our current bond is well within scope.
And the amount of taxpayer money that was spent on the pro part of the bond referendum?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
The amount of taxpayer money that was spent on promoting the bond referendum for a yes vote?
There was no taxpayer dollars that was spent on the Vote Yes. The Vote Yes campaign was sponsored by, that's illegal, and I'm going to follow the law, as is our Board of Education. So we did not utilize any taxpayer dollars to promote this bond.
And last question for me, lottery proceeds for public school construction. Do you have the flexibility to use that for schools that have good bones, but need new legs and arms? Or is there still an incentive to tear down buildings and build brand new ones as far as the lottery money and the strings that are attached to that and the amount of regulation you have to go through to get it and use it?
Sure. So there's
Paul,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. This is David Boyd. I was going to tell you that our lottery proceeds are about $9.5 million a year, and we're currently using all that money to pay debt service on outstanding bonds that were used to finance school construction.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were answering. Go ahead, Mr. Butler.
Can you tell me what the enrollment has been in the private schools of Mecklenburg County and the charter schools? Are they going up or down? And do you have a number?
I don't believe I have that information. Oop, am I muted? Oh, you can hear me. I don't believe we have that information today unless one of my team members does, but we'll be happy to provide that information to you.
Did you see it, Cindy?
This is Brian Schultz, the Chief Operations Officer. So that the chart on the slide reflects that. And if you actually hover. I don't know if that you have access to do this right now, but if you hover over the bars, it will represent the actual numbers. So you will see some increases in those areas. It is kind of interesting as the homeschool enrollments declined slightly over the last 2 or 3 years, and you can see some growth with the private and charter enrollment growth, while the traditional public schools has remained flat.
But you don't have the actual numbers then?
We do, and I can send those. And another way to access those would just to be hover over that indicated on the bar graphs. I don't know that we can actually do that during this presentation, but I can certainly send those as a follow-up as well.
The reason I ask this, I'm down in the southeastern part of the state. This is a major issue down in Wilmington and New Hanover County. They've determined that the enrollment in the public schools is going to be down some 400 people, and the enrollment in the charter schools and private schools are going to be down 70 to 80 people, which is putting the school system in kind of a real crunch on what they're going to do about their financing. Let me also ask you this: have you got a projection where what the tax increase will be to pay for this?
Before we answer the tax increase question, I just wanted to address the enrollment. And so I apologize. We will have those numbers for you in the PowerPoint. This is a PDF. That's why you can't see the numbers, but we'll be happy to send those to you right after this meeting. I did want to address in terms of, charter and private school enrollment, even if we remain flat, 47% of our schools are currently over capacity, as I previously stated. And I also did want to point out that this bond project is primarily focused on new schools and renovating schools that are aged out. And so you will see that 3 of our projects are only focused on growth. And those are areas of the county that are already saturated, some of the largest schools in the state. But the majority of our projects are focused on either rebuilding or renovating aging facilities that are just in not great conditions that I wouldn't want my child in. And David,
both of my grandchildren are enrolled in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg public school system, so I'm pretty familiar. Visited those schools when I'm in Charlotte.
And Mr. Boyd can speak to the tax increase.
I think if we run through the second half of the presentation, I think most of your financial questions might be answered, as opposed to trying to answer one-offs. If you don't mind trying to do it that way.
Sure.
So I have to apologize. I don't have any power or internet, so I'm on my phone, so I cannot see what you are all looking at. So if we could get to slide 14, I believe, where we left off. There's should be a list of a summary of all the projects. Slide 14.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So one thing I wanted to point out is just in terms of cost estimation and flexibility, we have got a $2.5 billion bond that's supposed to be approved. But what I think is important to note is the nominal cost of the projects is less than $1.9 billion. We have added in, we believe there are reasonably conservative additional costs for contingency for each project, as well as inflation of nearly $500 million based on the timing of when all of the projects are planned to go forward. So I just want to point that out. Next slide. We can talk about the plan of finance, and then the next slide, 16, overview of the capital plan. I did meet, a group of us from the county did meet with the LGC staff this past summer to talk about our capital plan and what we were planning to do, not only with school projects, but obviously we have other needs in the county that we need to pay for. And we reviewed the plans, as well as went through our process for capital planning. As a larger jurisdiction, we do have the benefit of having significant resources that we can bring to bear on planning capital projects in terms of scoping needs, cost estimation, those types of things. And currently in progress, we have $520.6 million or 47 projects that are currently underway. Those include 5 that the school district is working on, as well as 42 non-school related projects that we currently have underway. Coming into 2024 for our next 5-year capital plan, we approved approximately $4 billion of additional projects to begin within the next 5 years. And that includes the $2.5 billion for the 30 school projects that we're talking about today, as well as 59 non-school projects for another $1.5 billion. That includes everything from needed repairs and improvements to our jail facilities, to community resource centers for consolidated delivery of social services, numerous parks and rec facilities, funding for Charlotte Mecklenburg Library, Central Piedmont Community College, as well as some improvements for the courts. And our plan to pay for that is obviously to pay for the school projects with general obligation bonds, and the balance of the project, 50% with cash or pay-go funds, and 50% with other non-voted debt. Next slide, please. So obviously, what's important to us in terms of how we're paying for the project is knowing when the money's going to be spent. The cash flows are really important for us to be aware of, so we don't borrow too much too soon or too little too late. And that obviously determines the timing and sizing of what we need to borrow. So we really need to have accurate cost estimates and spend projections. As I mentioned before, the county has significant resources in our asset and facilities management department that really work as kind of on-site architectural consultants to help scope and estimate our non-school projects. But then in addition, with the projects that the schools are managing, they have extensive experience with all the projects that they just are wrapping up and the 30 plus projects that they've been doing. So they understand how these projects work, what they cost, how long they take. So that's a benefit that we have in eliminating some uncertainty. And then we've also built what I think is a pretty robust financial model to help figure out how we can pay for it, what the potential taxing impact might be. And this was also something that we reviewed with local government commission staff this summer. That model, as well as our planning efforts, do definitely take into account some of the constraints of our debt policy, which are very closely aligned to some of the criteria that the rating agencies used. I think County Manager DiOrio mentioned our AAA bond rating. Just as recently as December, we did have rating agency monitoring calls with both Standard & Poor's and Moody's and discussed with them our current financial position as well as our plans for the future, which did include these bonds that we're discussing today. Both of them affirmed our AAA bond rating in their updated reports that they issued in December. Next slide, please. These next 3 slides, I just wanted to show you one of the tools that we use in coming up with cost estimates and cash flow projections for each of the projects that are included in our capital improvement plan. This one here, it's less about the details of what's on the screen, but just kind of want to show you what type of a tool we use. So this is South Mecklenburg High School, and on the far right there, the nominal project cost for this project was just over $100 million, with the planned start date in September 23 and an estimated completion date of August 1st, 27. Next slide. As part of this tool, we have inputs on what's the start date, what's the length of construction, what's the makeup of the construction project, which helps us to estimate the cost as well as add in any necessary contingency, as well as escalate the project based on when it's going to get completed. So if you look at the lower right box, the top right corner of the lower right box, you can see we've taken that $100 million project, added escalation, which takes it up to nearly $106 million. And then we've added escalation based on the fact that it's not going to be completed until 2027, which turns that $100 million project into a planning number of just under $128 million, so that we are more certain that we won't have any problems with costs for construction over that time period. Slide. And here is another one of the outputs that enables us to see cash flow on a monthly basis as the project goes from design to construction and close out between now and fiscal year 2027. Next slide. So some of the details on how we're going to pay for this. First of all, to give you just a little bit of context, Mecklenburg County's 2024 budget is just under $2.4 billion, our total budget. We did have a revaluation, which was effective for this fiscal year, where all real property was up 51%. Our prior tax rate was 61.69 cents. Our 2024 tax rate post revaluation is 47.31, which was 1.6 cents over revenue neutral. Our total debt service payments today is about $224 million, and the revenues that we have available in 2024 to pay for both capital and debt service, you can see in that box there, we dedicate just under 12 cents of our property tax to capital projects. That's $295 million. We have a portion of the tax article that is specifically for school purposes. That's $88 million. As I mentioned earlier, our lottery funds are $9.5 million. And then we have interest earnings and some other variable revenues that we allocate towards capital. So $409 million available in 2024 for our debt service and capital costs. Next slide. So we are projecting about 4 tranches of borrowing, depending on cash flow, to pay for the school projects. The first in fiscal year 25, currently estimated at $300 million, and then likely 3 additional tranches over the next 7 years, obviously based on cash flow that I just talked about. Tax increases that we have projected and shared with the community at the outset of this include 1 cent tax increases projected in each of fiscal years 25, 28, and 29, for a total 3 cent tax increase to pay for the bonds once they're fully issued. Next slide. So we do know that, over a 5-year planning horizon, that there are things that are going to change. We have a lot of estimates that we have used in developing the 5-year plan and how we're going to pay for it. But I think we do have some things that we do to manage that uncertainty. First of all, as a large jurisdiction, we do have large reserves, ample cash to deal with timing issues relative to when we might issue bonds versus when we might need to spend money to fund projects. As you saw from how large our capital plan is, we do have a lot of projects going at the same time. So while one might slow down, we may have another that is proceeding more quickly, which helps even out some of the cash flow projections. We do hold regular meetings with not only CMS, but all of our agency partners for whom we are funding projects, including the library, CPCC. And then we have an annual adoption of a 5-year plan. So each year we are looking at the 5-year capital plan, adjusting it, as well as adding a new 5th year. So I call it a rolling CIP, which always lets us have at least 5 years look ahead on what might be coming down the road. And then lastly, but perhaps most importantly, is I believe we have used conservative projections in terms of the revenues that we're going to have available, interest rates, bond structure. We haven't assumed anything other than just what I call a plain vanilla bond structure. And then sizing, making sure that we're not sizing our issuances inappropriately based on cash flows. That's the last thing that I have. I believe County Manager DiOrio wanted to close things out with a few comments, and then we can answer any more questions that you might have. Thank you.
Mr. Treasurer, I have a couple of questions. Sir, tell me what your job is again.
Sure, I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the county.
You're with the county, not the school system. Okay.
That's right. I'm the county chief financial officer.
Okay. On each of these projects, are you having each of them designed by an architectural firm that you retain, and then you put it out for bid, or are you rolling this up with one architectural firm may do several projects?
So this is Dennis LeCaire with Charlotte Schools, and so we, as a program, we do an RFQ for designers, and then we do an RFQ for construction managers at risk, and those are done project by project. And so that is correct, sir.
You request a proposal to design it, then you get proposals to build it. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. Each project discreetly.
All right. Do you have construction managers that are monitoring this construction for each project, or do you have multiple construction managers, or do you not have construction managers?
Yes, sir. We have a blend. We have a contracted program management service that is a staff extension to help us, because we have to flex, as the number of projects ebb and flow. It helps us to flex our staffing, and then we have full-time CMS employees as well who are integrated with that. And those folks roll up to me, and then to the chief operating officer, and then to the superintendent. So that's how that is managed. We have construction teams, project management teams that are assigned to those projects, and design managers that work through the design process as well with our in-house architectural staff.
So let me see if I heard you right. You have construction managers that are contracted out that work with some construction managers that work directly for the county.
That's correct, with the school system, and the folks that work for us managing the projects internally are not eligible to compete for construction projects. So you're on one side of the equation or the other. You're either integrated with us and supporting our program, or you're on the outside building a project.
And would you, sir, please advise me approximately how many architectural firms are designing projects up there?
It's several. I mean, we have a dozen or so firms that are routinely throwing their hats in the ring for our work, and then there are others as well. We use a pretty robust selection process to ensure that we're getting firms that can do the job that we want for the fees that we can and will pay. And so we tend to see a lot of the same folks over and over and over again, but we also do have some new firms engaged each time.
And what about construction companies? How many construction companies are involved in building these facilities?
It's a similar sort of mix of groups where we have a handful of first-time folks and some folks that know us pretty well. And again, we're going on qualification. We're looking at who can actually do what well. We don't normally just pick somebody who does a really good elementary school to do a high school. We try and let people do what they do really well. And we like to create opportunities as much as possible. We balance that as well with knowing that we have folks who can do a good job for us.
Well, you're probably about the largest public works facility going on under any local unit of government in the state of North Carolina, and will be for a while. You got a big job in front of you. Thank you for answering my questions.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions? Just a couple of follow-up. I was on Forsyth County Board of Education for 8 years, and I hope the answer is no. No more flat roofs, right?
Generally, we do have some flat roofs, depending on how we're dealing with mechanical systems. So it is a mix.
I meant on new construction.
On some of the new construction as well, because of the need to try and deal with mechanical and screening and things of that nature. We do still have some flat roofs, but I believe the technology that we're using is much better than the old ballasted sort of built up roof.
Second question, for Forsyth County, where we needed 4 elementary schools, we bid that out and let one architectural firm, depending on topography, design a footprint where we could cut costs on design and architectural fees by having sort of a standard looking elementary school that worked out really well for us. Are you doing any of that in this bond referendum?
Yes, sir. And we have really since 2007. So we have gone to sort of a clone type structure. We have very prescriptive educational specifications and construction specifications for our buildings, such that the designers then are really just taking those specifications and translating those and site adapting a model that we're familiar with. So you probably would not know going from school A to school B that there were 2 different architects involved, because the same sort of elements and the square footages, the classroom counts, the things that we want to see in each one of our schools is carried out, and we make sure that it's carried out faithfully.
Thank you. I think Forsyth County may have set the standard on that in the 90s. Other school districts followed. So.
Yes, sir.
Any other board members have any questions? Is that the extent of y'all's presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is the treasurer again. Just 2 quick questions. 1 quick question. This is for the county manager. I presume that the owner of the Charlotte Mecklenburg Housing Hospital Authority is the county of Mecklenburg, correct?
You and I have had this conversation before. It is a standalone nonprofit as far as I am aware. We've never been able to determine that the county is the owner of Atrium Health.
Did she say they're not the owner of Atrium?
Okay. All right. Well, we won't belabor that, but except that the board members to Atrium Health are appointed with the permission of a list that's presented to the chair of the county commission of Mecklenburg County. So there's some connection there.
You're correct.
Okay. And I want to applaud the city of Charlotte. There was a Happy New Year email that came to us, I guess from Tom Lee or someone, and referenced some previous legislator who had always pushed to put on the ballot for the voters to approve this type of debt, the interest cost associated with that. And that was me in 2006, nearly 20 years ago. So I want to applaud the city of Charlotte, even in the face of the opposition of this bond referendum, to have the courage to educate the voters to the extent possible about that this is not just the principal amount of this. Just like when you buy a home, there's an interest component to this. So I want to applaud the county and the school districts for having the courage to actually tell the voters that. And I also want to applaud our staff. When I first got here, we would approve these transactions, and then we'd ask for the voters to approve them. So some counties would go to the voters and said the local government commission's already approved this. And so I think we got things in the right order now. If we're going to put something on somebody's credit card, we ask their permission first once the voters approve it, then they come to us. So I want to applaud LGC staff for that. Any questions from any board members?
Mr. Chairman, can we get a copy of this presentation in our next agenda package?
Certainly.
That's not a problem.
We can actually send it out with the other materials that they'll be providing to us after the meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
We will see this again as each of the tranches comes up. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yeah. No, the approval, and Tony can speak more to how the tranches. And this
General
will be,
obligation bonds, we approve all the bonds at one time. As long as we sell the bonds competitively, the county does not have to come back to the commission for approval. In this case, there will be new money issues, so they will be sold competitively.
What do you think the interest rate's going to be on the bonds?
I will say that we're hopefully in a declining interest rate environment. We sold bonds back in October when the market was up at about 3.5%. So we should be down toward 3%. I'll also applaud the county, Mecklenburg County, a couple of years ago. I guess it was in 22. We were planning to sell about 200 million, 225 million, and the county sold basically the remaining authorized bonds from 2017. We sold about 435 million at very low interest rates. So we timed the market well with issuing $400+ million at that time, and they were able to move up some projects. So the timing was very good with the last bond sale for the county.
All right.
Mr. Treasurer, this will come before the commission in February for a vote, next month for a vote. So this presentation was just for informational purposes.
Secretary Marshall.
Okay, that's what I want to know. When we see it again.
And when staff brought this to me about my interest in having this presentation, I said, let's let the board decide that. So the board all weighed in and said, we'd like to have this is more debt than the state is going to have outstanding by the time you start issuing it. So the board voted to have this presentation come in before the actual vote. So push the power down to them. All right. Any other questions? Madam Manager or Madam Superintendent, anything you'd like to say, closing remarks in any way?
Nothing for me, but again, thank you for the opportunity to make the presentation. And we look forward to answering any additional questions that you may have.
Yes, thank you so much, and we'll make sure that we get the information requested. Thank you for the opportunity.
Board members, anything you'd like to add or ask these individuals before they leave? Thank you all for joining us, and be safe down there. And quit changing the names of your streets into a street. God, you drive down one street and then all of a sudden it's a different street and you haven't turned off anywhere. I don't know what's going on with that.
Is that where we're going?
Huh?
That might be Charlotte.
It's Raleigh too.
But I'm saying that Salem is the only city in the United States where a first and fourth cross. So I don't have much to complain about that. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Debbie, turn it over for other items.
Roger Hill, Aggie Pride.
We have no other announcements. Our next meeting is February 6th. We're back to a fairly standard first Tuesday schedule for at least the next few months. So our next meeting will be February 6th.
We have no intention of meeting off-site this year. We crisscrossed and did north and east, west, and we were glad to get into those communities, especially Terrell County, which is the lowest income in the United States, and especially after COVID when their sales tax revenue had fallen. So I was very excited about visiting the 4-H camp. And Madam Auditor, if you're ever looking for a place to have a retreat, don't underestimate how gorgeous and hospitable those folks out there. It's on the Albemarle Sound. If you've never been there. Any additional, let's go around the horn and see if any board members have anything they'd like to add. Let's start virtually. Ms. Hoffman?
Yes, I would just like to say I was very pleased to read the article on the town of Pikesville in the latest North Carolina League of Municipalities magazine. They were very complimentary of our local government commission in terms of working through their issues there. So it was very, very nice to read that.
Thank you. Secretary Penny?
Just welcome the new state auditor and thank her for attending.
What was the Go Aggies thing?
Dr. Hill has an undergraduate and a master's degree from my alma mater.
Okay.
It was Aggie Pride. We'll teach you how to say it.
I went to Winston-Salem State, so I'm not sure you're going to get me to say that. So. But I'm a big fan of Dr. Martin.
We'll pray for you.
We did for you when Big House Games was there. But I'm a big fan of Dr. Martin. Is he retired yet? Is Dr.
He
Martin
will
retired?
retire at the end of this year, but he did both of our alma maters a good thing.
Good. Okay. Mr. Philbeck?
Well, I'd also like to welcome Madam Auditor to the LGC and look forward to working with you. And I will tell y'all, I live 2 counties over. I'm in the Charlotte TV market, and I can tell you that I saw numerous times on news and other things. They did tell the people there before they voted about those 3-1 penny tax increases, because I remember hearing them. So that seems like they've been out front about that for whatever it's worth. But thank y'all for a good meeting. I'm glad we heard the presentation now.
Thank you, Mr. Philbeck. Mr. Burns?
Just want to join the welcome for the state auditor, who did not let the fact that she would have to be on a board with me again to trigger.
I'm not sure anybody told her.
Oh, no, I was there.
Did y'all serve together?
We did.
Yes.
For how long?
We were elected together.
Yes.
And one of us was reelected. Glad
How long did y'all serve together?
4 years.
4 years.
And we ran together.
Okay.
Ran and served together.
Yep. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler.
I also want to welcome the new state auditor. I am pleased that she's from Pender County, which is east of I-95.
Born and raised.
She'll make the second person, even though she resides in Raleigh now. She doesn't reside in a rural county, but I know from whence she came. I am very, very familiar with Pender County. I would also like to change subjects. I'd like to request that paragraph number 5, item number 5, that Cindy prepared, be entered into the minutes. So if there's ever any question about that in the future, we can refer back to it and not have to reinvent the wheel. If anybody's got any problems with that.
Will not the whole report be in the minutes?
No.
It's, you can, that's your call. It's the board's minutes.
I'm not opposed to putting the whole report in there.
That's fine, as long as number 5's in there.
No objection.
Okay. Secretary Marshall.
Well, welcome again to Auditor. It's going to be hard for me to say Auditor in front of your name, but Auditor Holmes, I'm very pleased for you. And we're off to a robust start of this new year at the Secretary of State's office. All we do is continue to file on average between 650, 700 new business entities a business day. So it's whiplash territory. We've been there for the last 3 years. This past year, we just closed out with our second highest year ever of new business creations. So.
I appreciate the very warm welcome and look forward to working with each of you, including former Commissioner John Burns.
Let the minutes reflect that. Thank you, welcome, and I guess I should know this at this stage. Once everything is cleared, will we swear her in separately?
I don't believe so. No, I think her swearing in as auditor stands for all the commissions that she'll be serving on with regards to BSD.
Cheryl, some sit on so many boards, I need to keep it regular.
Is that clear, Cindy? Is that correct?
That's what Laura was, but
Yeah.
we can,
We
we're
can
at
still
liberty to
do an informal,
There's no law against going above and beyond.
LGC does not hesitate when there's an opportunity to have a party. So,
Let's do it.
for any,
So you're in charge of snacks.
yeah. So, thank you all.
Thanks to Joe and MJ for their AV and meeting support today, so thank you both.
That in honor of, well, I'll let you make the motion, Mrs. Hoffman, if you like.
A motion to adjourn?
In honor of Sergeant Philip.
Absolutely. Please, let's remember the Nix family and make the motion to honor and remember him and his service.
And Councilwoman Hoffman, I know you know Tom Terrell, and there's another.
Yes, Tom's mother died yesterday, I believe, or David. Yes, Tom and I communicated yesterday. So that, again, a most amazing couple, a lifetime of service.
I feel like somebody on Andy Griffith's show and telling you that in an LGC call, but since we don't see each other very often, I just want to let you know that. So we have a motion and the second.
Second.
Second by Secretary Marshall to adjourn. The clerk will call the roll.
Secretary Penny,
Aye.
Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Mr. Butler,
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck,
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Okay.
We're hereby adjourned. Thank you.
My pleasure.